Listen, you're not gonna find anything on me, okay? Trust me.
Empty your pockets into the tray, sir, or we'll have to. Your pockets, sir?
Lady, the problem isn't in my pants.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's that time of the week, a little bit later in the day, because earlier we did a live special, or I did a live special with Jervain Dargan talking about Milestone Comics. So it's the same day, a little later, but it's all things X-Men. It's This Week in X-Men. And with me, as always, is the X-Men historian, the Marvel aficionado. Doc, how you doing?
I'm pretty damn good, sir. Yourself?
I'm doing excellent, man. There was so much X-Men news. I had to do basically an X-Men segment by myself because we couldn't fit it in here because we have four big comic books to talk about this week. Basically, the two Prelude comics for Ten of Swords, which kicks off next week, which I will be reviewing Ten of Swords Creation #1 right here on the channel solo on Wednesday. And then Doc and I will, of course, talk about it, give his thoughts during the normal This Week in X-Men. But before that, we've got X-Men #12, which we're going to talk about first. Second will be Excalibur #12, which technically takes place before this, but it's an inferior comic, so we'll talk about that one afterwards. Then we're going to hit the conclusion of Giant Size X-Men from Jonathan Hickman with Giant Size X-Men Storm, and then finally we're going to hit is it the creme de la creme, Hellions #4, I believe. You ready for this, Doc?
I am absolutely ready, sir.
All right. Well, I hope the people are ready. And if you've been coming around and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Today is the day to subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications. Give us an enormous thumbs up if you enjoy this content. Give us an enormous thumbs down if you don't. Either way, we definitely want to hear your feedback and your thoughts on X-Men and what you think about our hot takes on everything X-Men. All right, Doc, so we got to get into X-Men #12. This is the final issue being illustrated by Leinil Francis Yu. He says he's taking a break. Taking a little bit of time off of X-Men. He's been the primary artist from day one with Jonathan Hickman as the writer. I think this is an excellent comic for what it is. This is like a 4-star, highly recommend for me. I could see how it could turn some people off because there is a lot of information in this comic, but I think it's really exciting stuff, to get us ready for Ten of Swords. Basically talking about Arakko, when it was sealed inside the breach, and they, apparently there's the kingdom of Amenth that we got into there. We learn about the wife of Apocalypse. I believe her name is Genesis. We learn about the ultimate foe down there, and I believe that character's name is Annihilation. That is the character with the big gold mask. What'd you think, Doc?
I thought it was if it was characters that I actually gave a damn about, it would have been a great story. But it's a bunch of characters that they haven't convinced me to like yet, and then giving me a giant info dump about them, which is, I guess, okay. I mean, it doesn't make it a bad comic for me. It's just the fact that, you give me a giant info dump on characters that I've only seen like a couple of panels on over a year now, like over a year since House of X, Powers of X. You just give me a giant info dump on them, and I guess that's okay, but maybe I just need more time to process it to really appreciate, or maybe this may be a comic that I appreciate much more in retrospect. I know a lot of people loved it, and I felt like, am I missing something? But I mean, these are characters I'm not invested in yet, so make me invested in them, and it will be a great comic.
Yeah, I think they're setting up some pretty cool stuff here too. Obviously, yesterday live on the channel, we did our Ten of Swords predictions and debate. We kind of discussed some of these details. I think Hickman sets up a lot of the things that are going on here. And one of them is the conflict that while Apocalypse and the people of Earth probably see him as a hero, everybody that he sealed inside the breach, and basically that was on Arakko, that was fighting off the enemy, the horde that had come through the gates, that he sealed on the other side, they don't see him that way. He might not be the conquering, returning hero that we initially thought. It sounds like a lot of them have some issues with him, that he trapped him inside there. And I also think we might be getting an unreliable narrator here, at least to a certain point. I think the beginning, the initial history of Arakko and Amenth is probably what happened. But I think we're being thrown for a loop here, and we're gonna find that once Apocalypse goes through the gate, because now he has a gate that can go to Arakko, that he's gonna discover that maybe there's an army waiting to destroy him on the other side.
Yeah, it seemed to me like the summoner, I guess he was basically given the info dump here. You couldn't really exactly tell where his allegiances lie. You couldn't tell if he was being a snarky asshole to Apocalypse or if he was being sincere, because he kind of went back and forth between, yeah, we like you, and yeah, you're a giant coward that locked us in here so that you didn't have to fight. And that may, I mean, at the end of the day, you may end up with two kind of, I may end up voting or, rooting for the people that are from Arakko on the other side, to be perfectly honest, because I don't like Apocalypse.
Well, if you don't like Apocalypse, let's get into the next comic that is a prelude to Ten of Swords. Obviously, X-Men and Excalibur are the two main comics that are playing into this event. Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard, who is the writer on Excalibur, are the two main architects of it. And if you didn't like Apocalypse from that comic, you're definitely not going to like Apocalypse from this one. And I'll be honest, Doc, why don't they just go buy the license for Harry Potter or The Craft or whatever witchcraft comic book that Tini Howard wants to write and let her do that instead of putting her on an X-Men comic and, making her try to turn Apocalypse into Dumbledore or something? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. I feel like this is a comic that should be Tini Howard's weird, goofy creator-owned image magic comic,
Yes.
which would be fine if it was a creator-owned image magic comic, but good job riding everyone else's coattails and the coattails of the X-Men, Tini Howard. It's the only way you're actually getting sales. Look, okay, this kind of jumped into some deep lore with this issue. I mean, I haven't read any of the other issues. I don't care about this comic. I abjectly refuse to read 90% of what Tini Howard writes. And we haven't seen the externals since John Malin's Cable run, where he basically killed them all. So having them back is interesting, especially when, a year ago, whenever they were finishing up Mr. and Mrs. X, Chandra was there as a tween because she had just been resurrected or something. Don't we have Selene running around trying to murder Captain America over in that book? There's a lot of continuity issues here, but we do get the externals, and that's kind of cool, but the externals is a concept that never really got fleshed out very well, and Tini Howard is definitely not the one to do it. She's just not that interested.
You need their bones to create a gateway portal from Arakko to Krakoa.
Yeah, but I mean the nature.
Otherworld.
Yeah, but the nature of the externals, she's not the one to figure.
I don't think you're understanding sarcasm here.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm missing that. But no, this comic it has nothing to do with mutants. I don't know why it's an X title. I don't know if the previous 11 issues, and maybe I'm completely wrong, I don't know if that actually dealt with mutant stuff, but this is just some.
It didn't. I read the first two issues and jumped off because it was so terribly. The characterization was so off. The pacing was so poor. I jumped back in on this one because you got the channel. We talk about X-Men, and I'm thoroughly unimpressed. Maybe even more so because this is the big comic leading into the event, and it still sucked. Yeah,
and if this is what we can expect from Ten of Swords, it makes me even less interested in upgrading the mutants to all be externals, I guess, maybe. Except for their mutant powers don't matter because they're just going to do a bunch of magic stuff.
Mm-hmm. There's this weird, stupid plot in here to where to open the portal, he's got to use all the bones from the externals, the old ones. And it turns out the portal doesn't open because Chandra here has put herself inside of like a gym, and Gambit has it. And it seems like she has avoided death. And at the end, he just like chucks it through a little wormhole and gives it back to Apocalypse. I was like, why did we even do this story?
Well, that plus the fact that Apocalypse obviously doesn't care about any of the externals. There were still 3 more that were alive on his side. Just kill one of them.
Well, those are the young ones. Those are the powerful ones. He needed them.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Who cares?
I know. I'm with you, man. It's stupid.
Nothing matters here. And honestly, I mean, did Betsy even have like a role in this comic? Rogue didn't. I don't understand what the hell they're doing with Richter, but again, that's something that I'm expected to be lost on because I haven't read 11 issues to this point.
Yeah,
but this
I'd have to be more interested to go and read up on it. So,
and I'm not
thoroughly unimpressed. This is like I don't know. Do I want to be generous and call it a 2-star comic?
I'd say 1.5.
It's not a recommend. Let's put it that way.
I'd go with 1.5 star.
There you go. It's a 1.5 or a 2-star comic. It's not very good. The illustration's okay sometimes, but for the most part, not great. Moving on to something more interesting. Obviously, Ten of Swords. The X-Men comic was good. Excalibur sucked, just like we probably anticipated. The other big issue this week is Giant Size X-Men Story, which is essentially the culmination of Jonathan Hickman's Giant Size X-Men line, which seems to have been a complete waste. We finally have the stories coming together, sort of, and they're going to cure Storm's techno-organic virus. But the beginning of the story, I'm reading it, and they're like, why don't we just kill her? And I was like, it's a damn good point.
Yeah.
Why don't you just kill her? Why would you go to the world and risk anything when you could just kill her?
I was expecting at some point there to be some reason why, like her genetics were, compromised by the techno-organic virus. So any clone that they made would just also have the techno-organic virus or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe it would get into Krakoa itself and they wouldn't be able to resurrect other mutants.
Yeah. Yeah, like so I expected there to be some sort of a reason, and the reason just turned out to be because Storm thinks
she didn't
she's
want
a
to
goddess. Yeah, she's too proud. What the hell, Hickman?
It was one of the worst explanations for anything I've ever read in my life.
I mean,
he basically tells you why the comic book is not important, and then when he pays it off to tell you why to not pay attention to that, it doesn't make any sense. I was like, yeah, they should have just killed her. This is a waste of time. But some of the visuals are interesting. Obviously, this page here is probably the highlight from Russell Dowderman. I did find the art in this issue was lacking in comparison to Giant Size X-Men, Emma Frost, and Jean Grey.
Well, okay, this is another case of Hickman introducing a lot of interesting stuff while making the plot about shit that nobody cares about. And that is absolutely meaningless. The whole thing with Phantom X and Weapon 13 and the world and the AI that was created, all that stuff, super interesting. That ends up not being any of the plot. Again.
Another interesting thing that happened that I actually liked was when Cypher and Warlock turned Cypher into War Machine.
Yeah, that was cool. You make him into you made him into like, you got him a cool body armor thing. That was really freaking cool. There was a lot of interesting stuff in here, but there was no connection. That Magneto issue, absolutely useless. No connection at all to the rest of this. And honestly, that Nightcrawler issue, with the exception of that one panel with Warlock sitting there, absolutely useless. No point in this. So I want $10 back from that.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was an interesting reveal at the very end that I think was very interesting. Is probably the reason that he did this whole thing was because they separated Storm from the techno-organic virus in the world. There's an apparatus there that can separate things. And so she's healthy. She's back to normal. but that techno-organic virus was like contained within the world. Cypher talked to it. Apparently, it's a sentient techno-organic virus. So I imagine sometime in the near future, we're going to find out that the entire world has been infected by this sentient techno-organic virus. And that sounds kind of cool.
It is, but at the same time, I mean, Cypher's on the freaking Quiet Council. Does he not know that the biggest threat to mutants going forward is artificial intelligence and human upgrading via technology? How is it not like the prime directive of the X-Men at this point to murder every AI that they come in contact with? And he just decides, I'm going to leave it here in this place that its job is to pressurize time and cause evolution to occur at a rapidly accelerated rate outside of it. That sounds like a wonderful idea, you friggin' morons.
Yeah, he just kind of winked at the virus. He's like, I'll see you later.
Yeah, like, so, I mean,
we can't. Come on, Doc. We got one more comic book. We can't go too far over 20 minutes.
No, but the only thing that I will say is that there's one thing that they could do to redeem that, and that would be if it turns out that the Vault is the future version of the world that has been taken over by that sentient techno-organic virus. That's it.
All right. So this is like a 3-star comic. I recommend this. It's a middle of the road recommend. It's not too much, but Hellions, is this the best X-Men comic this week?
Easily.
X-Men 12 was great, but I really enjoyed Hellions 4.
Hellions is great because, first of all, it's not a giant info dump. It's characters that we actually give a damn about and that we have investment in. And it actually felt like an X-Men comic. It basically hit all of the check marks for being a good X-Men comic. And it knocked it out of the park. The art was great. The story was weird and cool. Madeline was kind of a badass, and the ending was really, really actually cool in setting something up for the future that I'm really looking forward to.
Absolutely. So there's 3 kind of big reveals in this comic book. One of them is that apparently Alex is so stressed right now that if he's overwhelmed, he loses control of his power and he can like destroy buildings and stuff on accident and not remember what happened to him.
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened to Wally West at Sanctuary.
Sort of, except for less murdery.
Yeah. He just took down the building. And then the other big one was, or the other big 2, at the end, we learn that they are going to bring back the original Marauders as original as they can, and they needed to go to the council to talk about bringing back Madeline, and it's decided, because Alex knows because he's a member of the council, that because she's a clone, she cannot be brought back, and Alex is like heartbroken. Like, I wanted to cry with him, man.
I did too, because look, I mean, as much as Maddie is like a giant psychopath, she has every reason in the world to be a giant psychopath. She's been a puppet her entire life. She broke her strings free, and then they decided, nope, she's still just a puppet. She spent all 4 issues so far trying to prove to the audience that I am a real girl. It's really heartbreaking that this council just kind of decides, no, even though she had this whole, it gets into this philosophical thing about like, when does a clone stop being a clone? Like, how many years of its own personality and experience does it need to get before it's its own living thing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the other kind of reveal about this one is while they were kind of down in I believe it was in Omaha, it was in Nebraska somewhere. They're in Mr. Sister's old laboratory where he was doing genetic experiments, and Orphan Maker and Nanny. Nanny discovers these barrels, and it's got all the dead babies that Sinister created and just dumped out because they weren't what he wanted. And it really just gives you an idea of just what a sick bastard Mr. Sinister really is.
Exactly. and she is not pleased about it, and she confronts him. And she basically just says, yeah, I'm gonna murder you. That is not cool. And I kind of like the
best part of the whole comic, to be honest.
It really was. It it shows that Nanny has a as crazy as she is, she's got a very legitimate or she has a morality that she is going to stick with.
That Sinister does not have.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was some really cool stuff coming out of this. So I've enjoyed Hellions. This first story arc has been a banger. If you haven't read it, just go back and read it. You're going to love it. But I think coming out of it with 3 really interesting things to kind of think about and work with in Hellions moving forward. Also, who was the person writing the report? It's obviously not Mr. Sinister, unless he's speaking about himself in the third person. Is that Beast? I think it might be Beast. Beast might be the biggest villain on the island at this point. But
yeah.
This is like a 4-star comic. This is a highly recommend. It's neck and neck with X-Men number 12 to me. I think you think it's far superior, correct?
I think it's better. Yeah, I think it's a 4.5 star without a doubt. It's not quite the 5-star territory, but it's 4.5.
Yeah. So overall, this week has been very good as far as the X-Men news. 350 is a fake milestone for Wolverine, but I dig the creative team. So if you're going to do a milestone issue, I'm glad they get to do it. Chris Claremont's got a special 50th anniversary comic coming up. 2 of these are like highly recommends for me. We got to recommend, and we got to not recommend. It's Excalibur. It's something I wasn't reading anyway because it was Tinny Howard. But it's been a good week for X-Men, my friend. And next week might even be better. Ten of Swords finally kicks off.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
We'll see.
We'll see. That's the approach I'm taking at this point. Wait and see.